really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Halliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I think the product we put on the floor right now as a group is embarrassing. And I think we answered the conversation we had at halftime. I think we answered that in the second half better, but it's got to be like that for 48 minutes. You know, every team is playing hard right now. Every team is young and has energy, and there's no reason that we shouldn't be matching that and beyond. So, you know, I just think the product that we're putting out there on a nightly basis right now needs to be better because we work too hard. Too many people care. You know, you got too much pride in it. So the product has to be better, and I think just the effort has to be better. And if it's not, then, you know, he's going to keep playing around with lineups, playing around with, you know, different guys to figure out what's going to put the best product on the floor.
That's Tyrese Halliburton after last night's 122-111 loss on the road at Toronto. Welcome into the show. I want to get to that because this is something that Jake and I had just cross-talked about from his show to my show. And more than occasionally, I'll give you these analogies that have to do with Apollo 13. I love the film, and I just think sports-wise, with what you have to deal with and adjustments on the fly, you know, and that was real life back in 1970, April of 1970. And, you know, even though that it was a film in 1995, I think that a lot of what they discuss can transfer to the world of sports. And we've seen with our local sports teams a lot of those unenviable situations where you have to try to find a way out to where it looks hopeless. Things like that. And I try to use that sometimes as a joke, sometimes just as a relief analogy. But when I heard that last night from Tyrese Halliburton, it did strike me as it sounded exactly like why the guys, the crew at Apollo 13 were not getting, you know, where they were in space, the procedures for reentry, because NASA at the time didn't know what to do, didn't know how to do it, didn't have a solution for it. And I think that's where the Pacers are right now. So many things can be said. So many things can be said of, well, you just play harder. You care more. You focus in. You know, all this stuff that we throw around every single day in trying to overanalyze the world of sports as we do. I just think right now they're in a spot to where they don't know what to do. I don't think Rick Carlisle knows what to do, because certainly he would have pushed the right button at some point, right? I don't think the players really know what to do. I think what you see, for example, you see late in the game last night, there were aspects of why you fell in love again with the Pacers last year. There were aspects of it brought. Last night you saw Tyrese Halliburton be more like Tyrese Halliburton was last year. Why everybody coined him as an elite-level NBA player. Why he got a max-out deal. Why you felt compelled to go out and get Pascal Siakam and then bring him back and then max him out. Why you ran this entire thing back in general was because of all of what you witnessed last year. And let's just face it, we have seen aspects of that. However, they have been in fleeting moments. I mentioned it going back to Sunday in quarter number 1 against Memphis. I thought entirely that was the example of what we saw, and we saw it a lot this time of year last year. That's who the Pacers became. That's why you fell in love with them. And I do get this. I do get a year later, then defenses can catch up. And I'm not going to completely overlook the way the whistle is going right now, but I'm not going to overlook that aspect as long as nobody else overlooks the fact that so much, if not mostly all of this, is on them. I know you've had to deal with injuries. There's no excuse. You saw how New York played last year, and they dealt with injuries during the postseason. You just got to do it. You got to get through it. And I know what that does. It upsets everything. Last year, one of their major focuses, and certainly what was huge for them the entire year, was their bench. And that will be one of the first things that's pointed out. Well, their bench is not the same. Well, the bench can't be the same because you got a lot of guys playing roles that they didn't play a year ago. And you got to be able to count on those guys. And you can't count on those guys. You can't count on Jarris Walker. You saw Jarris Walker last night, added absolutely nothing. I added more last night than Jarris Walker did. I had a better night at CG in the gym than he did. You have to, and it's been the excuse. I know that I'll feel better when Neesmith gets back. I'll feel better when Nembhard is full speed and back. I'll feel better when Ben Shepherd is back. But you have to be able to navigate. And the problem that I think Pacer fans have, the problem that we have, especially those of us that watch intently and care about this product, when we view it, it is so stinking far off of what it's supposed to be, even beyond the injuries, beyond the excuses, beyond of what you can say, why this team has ended up where it is right now. I'm not suggesting that it's time to panic, but I am suggesting that it's time to find something you can do about it, and that was what was a little bit alarming to me last night with Tyrese Halliburton, because it sounded like they've gone over a lot of different aspects. A lot of different situations. They have analyzed this to a T, and they can't find a solution. Yeah, all this other stuff with getting guys back is going to happen, mid-month, whenever Neesmith is able, whenever Shepherd is back, whenever there's a clearance to give full go to Nembhard. And you're not going to get your backup bigs back. And Wiseman wasn't a part of the equation a year ago. Isaiah Jackson, I thought off the bench can give you a lot of energy. That certainly is missing right now. And Moses Brown's not going to be able to pick up that slack. But the guys in the lineup, too, look discombobulated. Offensively, they do. Evan Cidery is going to join us in the 5 o'clock hour, James, right? Evan Cidery had this X message, and I actually sent something else out. I've talked how much about the offense? It has to be among the league leaders. Has to. Because if it's not, they can't make up for it on the back end defensively. I hate to say back end because that shouldn't be back end, but to me, the Pacers, it is incredibly the back end is that group playing defense. They just stink at it. They stink at it collectively. They stink at it individually. And I mean, everybody really does. I mean, there are a few times when you see, oh, okay, great. Passing lane, there's a steal or a block from Miles. Not too often. Normally, these guys are getting the hell beat out of them off the dribble, and guys on the other teams with the ball are getting to a point, a space on the floor where they want to go, and that's the object of being a good defender, especially at that level. You keep guys like what we witnessed last night with R.J. Barrett or Scotty Barnes. Did you watch Scotty Barnes play? Scotty Barnes, there were specific places on the floor where he wanted his ass, where he wanted to get, because he knew that that was his best ticket to score. How often did they keep him from that mark? No matter who guarded him, whether it was Pascal Siakam or Andrew Nembhard, how often did that happen? And the same went for R.J. Barrett. And here's the thing that really pisses me off. And believe me, I don't claim to be some defensive guru. I don't. But I do know this. if you let guys of this caliber, no matter who we're talking about, no matter how deeply embedded on the bench they are, if you let guys of this caliber step in to wide open, non-close out three-point looks, for the most part, that's layups for these dudes. That's just where we are. Maybe in the day it wasn't that. Maybe you can give up because there's no way somebody's going to dial that thing in long range. But one of the reasons why you are where you are, unless you're just stratospherically athletic and you can rim run, is because, especially from distance, you can step into something and knock it down. It was far too familiar last night, and it has been that way defensively, but certainly just last night, they were talking about on the broadcast, on the television broadcast, what Toronto was doing, and it was a surprise. This guy's knocking down threes. That guy's knocking down threes. It shouldn't be, because they're all stepping into it. They all get incredibly clean looks. I think Quinn brought it up. I mean, get a hand up, act like you're going to hit him in the nuts or something. Anything. Do anything except what you did. And allow them to step into something that on that level is so incredibly simplistic. That's why they're there. I mean, they're already top percentage anywhere on the globe in athleticism, which, we all should be jealous of that. I go, whoa. That's why I love going to games. You watch these guys, even the guy on the end of the bench, like everybody talks about T.J. McConnell. Look at all that gritty and gutty. The dude is athletic as hell. He's athletic. Because you don't get to that point in the NBA without being athletic as hell. You just don't. He may not be able to get up and float and dunk or anything like that, but he is as fast as anybody. And then you also have the smarts. I was not like to suggest smarts are real good. You see plays before they actually happen. Yeah, to me, that's almost as important as just being incredibly athletic. Knowing where you're going, having that figured out 2 and 3 plays prior to it actually occurring. That is such a big deal. But defensively, you watched these guys last night. They're bad defenders for a reason. That was some half-ass defensive three-point stuff last night. This was. Rotations were messed up. Guys didn't get over. And what really bums you out, especially if you're a paying customer, is guys not trying to hustle ass over to do anything. I was kind of joking when I said hit him in the nuts. Seriously, I mean, act like you're anything whatsoever. Anything than what you're doing. Let him step into a wide open three. And when that happens early in the game, that makes the game so much easier for the opposition. And again, I'm not a defensive guru, but those are the very simple, I think, very minor reasons, low level, I should say, reasons for somebody that doesn't have really good smarts like me in that category, that if you just got out there and got a hand in the face, maybe you could do something about it. I got news for you. R.J. Barrett's left-handed. Maybe you should close out on that hand. Maybe you should be in the general vicinity, the zip code. Because once he gets going, he gets tough. You saw that, 2 weeks ago? On display, and was on display again last night. Because that they're just not going to supply any resistance from most of these guys getting to a point on the floor where they feel comfortable. Now, I was just talking about the defense here, but the offense has a serious situation too. I'm sorry. 3 of the 4 quarters last night scored under 30 points. They can't beat you guys doing that. Under 30. 3 of 4 stinking quarters. So, if you're going to be that bad defensively, and we saw that a year ago, you have to be high level offensively. And last year they were. They were what? Number 2 overall, I think, in the NBA. Yeah, we talked about the pace, talked about the offense, shot-making ability, all that. And you know what's funny? How feel-good you are making shots like they were a year ago, and you don't see anything like that. And if you do see it, it happens maybe 2 or 3 possessions, and then it goes away. So even before their defense, I don't think that there's a lot. Last night, there are some things you can do. You can hustle ass out there and close out a little bit, which they did not do. But the one thing that you should be able to do, because you still have core enough guys to do it, is be so much better than scoring 23 stinking points in the first quarter or 25 stinking points in the second quarter. They can't beat anybody doing that offensively. And that's what struck me last night when Tyrese Halliburton said what he said after the game. Because it sounded like that as of this moment, they have no answers. They have no solution. And I know that it's December. I know it's yet to be Christmas. And I know that there's a 22 games in right now? Everybody always says a 25-game gauge. They're about to approach that, and they're not anywhere near. And you can make the excuse of being minus bodies, and I'm sure that plays a role, or make the excuse that the whistle is different, and I'm sure that plays a role. But what does it the most is these guys are offensively, compared to a year ago, inept this year. They just are. That's what I'm going to call it, because they were so good last year. They were where they needed to be. And maybe you realize the teams are simply put going to try to take that away and have taken that away. But I don't see a lot of extra special things. Sure, there may be a little bit of more clutch and grabbing going on, a little bit more physicality. But we watched this Pacer team. How many wide open looks do they miss? Yeah, Toronto didn't miss those last night. The Pacers missed those. This is about them. It is about them. It is about them not having whatsoever a clue in terms of rectifying this, and the clock is ticking. And we witnessed that last night. Yeah, you're going to go on the road here. You're going to be on the road anyway, but you got winnable games. We thought that last night wasn't winnable, I guess. Brooklyn tonight, there's no Cam Thomas, I don't think, tonight. You got Chicago on the road. You get back home Sunday against Charlotte. There are just some have-tos here. Then you go on the road. You go Phoenix, Golden State, Sacramento. This team hasn't won on the road since early November. I was still doing the JMV takeover the last time these guys won on the road. Now's the time. Now's the time to get something going even before you get some of these guys back. Because there is going to be a point where you are what you are. Yeah, listen, I do. I understand that. I understand turnovers played a role too. But to me, that's all a part of how disjointed they are offensively. You cannot survive if you're the Pacers and be anywhere near what you want to be if you don't go over 30 in quarters. Well, that's just a lot to ask. No, it's not a lot to ask for. They're not Toronto's not locking anybody down. Scotty Barnes didn't want to play any damn defense out there. R.J. Barrett's never wanted to play defense out there. It's just who's going to fold the tent up first. And unfortunately, the Pacers do. Unfortunately, the Pacers do. All right, 239-1070. We shall talk about that. And believe me, that's everybody. Everybody says, well, you're just going to protect. I'm not protecting anybody on this. Because it is time to get your stinking act together if you have an act to put together. If you can put this thing back together, you need to start doing it. And I want to see them do it even before they get these other guys back. I get worn out around it. We're just inundated with stinking excuses all the time. And while I'm sure that they factor in, if you watch this closely enough, there are ways that you could play better and get around it. This team's just not doing it. And this team doesn't sound like that they have an answer for it right now. Got to coach better. Got to do better, says Rick. Tyrese Halliburton says, it's embarrassing. Yeah, at some point, I would think just the overall embarrassment of a game like last night, if that's how you feel in the post-game presser situation, what pride's going to set in at some point, right? Hey, I'm not trying to make you panic. I'm just telling you what is on the table right here. It was so much fun last year. It has been an absolute 180 so far this year. I don't know. If you want to call it a pep talk for nobody out there listening, then that's what it is. That is. It's a pep talk for nobody listening. From somebody that's never done it, never going to do it, never had an opportunity to do it. But I'm going to tell you what, I feel pretty solid about what I'm telling you right now. I do. Especially in this game. It's not always rocket science here. It's not always rocket science and analytics and algebraic equations. Sometimes it's just watching these guys and how they coexist on the floor, how they coexist on the bench, how things are going, and the level of pride that you have. And you didn't see a lot of any of that crap last night. Late. You did late. But it was too late. All right, that conversation at 239-1070. Who's on this show today? Kevin Bowen, 4 o'clock.
We got Bowen, we got Joe Wrights, and we got Evan Cidery.
Joe Wrights is going to be here. Evan Cidery absolutely hit on what I talked about. They have taken such a not-so-subtle fall offensively that his defense is never going to make up for that crap. If you got a chance to get it in gear, it's time to get this thing in gear a little bit. I did think Halliburton said something. He notices the fans and how uneasy they are about this product right now. And he should, because they won over everybody here at a time when you had fans here that were ready to be won over. And now you're just giving that back less than a year later. It's nonsensical. Get your ass in gear. All right, IU a winner last night. We'll talk about that. We'll talk a little Butler as well. Talk about the Boilermakers coming up on Thursday night on the road. Their first Big Ten game is at Penn State. Shout out to my good friend, high school friend, Dusty May. His first win in the Big Ten as head coach at Michigan on the road at Wisconsin. How about that? That is impressive right there. A little college hoop later on tonight, a little Colts conversation, some NFL, and a lot more. AAA memberships will hand out again today from our friends Matt and Matt. I also have some IU basketball tickets for you. I'll explain how you can win those. That and more. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live, the stream, the app. Do not go anywhere. Your calls and more reactions and more opinions and more nonsense all coming up next. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
with JMV.
Let me have a Diablo sandwich, a Dr. Pepper. Make it fast. I'm in a damn hurry.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
IU a 97-71 winner over Sam Houston. But Iowa last night, the game winner, Josh Dix from distance, 80-79 over Northwestern. Our good friend Brooks Barnheiser had 21 points and 10 rebounds in the loss. That was on the road in Iowa City. I mentioned a little bit earlier, friend of the show, Dusty May, Eastern Green. A little bit of Greene County for everybody. 67-64, his first Big Ten head coaching win at Michigan. On the road at number 11, Wisconsin. And UCLA outlasts Washington 69-58 last night as well. All right, later on tonight, Big Ten, Ohio State, Maryland, 6:30, Michigan State, Minnesota, 8:30, Oregon, USC tonight at 10:30. I mentioned, too, Matt Painter's Boilermakers. By the way, Matt's going to join us next week on the show. The 8th-ranked Boilermakers on the road at Penn State coming up tomorrow at 6:30. That is on Fox Sports 1 coming up tomorrow. Now, I'm not going to do this just because I feel like we all should be bent out of shape because somebody's saying something bad about us and about Indy and about the hosting abilities and about this being a destination location to host sports. I'm not doing that at all. I am just pointing out the stupidity of the comment. I don't know if you guys saw Albert Breer. Albert Breer, who is a senior NFL reporter, lead content strategist for a bunch of crap, whatever. Anyway, he was commenting on something Rush Dellinger had said regarding the Big Ten championship game, having get-in prices as low as $12. Of course, that matchup on Saturday is Penn State and Oregon, and Oregon's coming from a long way away. And both of those teams, by the way, are also going to be involved in the playoff. So you're juggling a lot, especially Oregon. This is not really going to be an easy way to get here. So Breer says this as a retort to Russ Dellinger. This is another reason why the Big Ten title game should be in Chicago. It's a massive alumni base for the majority of Big Ten schools like Atlanta is in the SEC. If you have it in Chicago, you take the travel element out of it for a lot of fans. Well, that's just dumb as hell. I'm not saying it just because we're all in Indy, and I'm not defending the flag, if you will, right here. I'm just saying it because in reality, you're asking a lot of the fans. You got to pick and choose what you want to do. And I know that Oregon just kind of swims around in a consistent pool of Nike money, but it's going to take the fans a lot to go to everything. And I don't care if they were putting this thing in Seattle. There's a lot to go to here. I mean, it's just, 3 hours from Chicago anyway. I believe, do they not? Can you check this? I believe there are direct flights this week from Eugene, Oregon. Is that accurate? Good Lord Almighty. What more can you do here? Albert Breer, just, it's one thing, and again, I'm not defending our honor. I'm just pointing out numbnuttery at a very high level, and Albert Breer is practicing a high level of numbnuttery. And again, the first point that I made, some people are just going to have to decide what you want to be a part of, what is going to be capable of being a part of. Yeah, Penn State and Eugene. So that's Albert Breer. But I thought that was a really stupid comment. And I responded with, yeah, I know the stagecoach arrives in Indy every day at 2 o'clock. What more can you ask for, dumbass? I mean, really. What more can you try to do? Nah, in fact, if you're going to have direct flights from Eugene, Oregon, just for this specific time, how does that make it any worse than Chicago? What Chicago area fans, you know what, I got to get there to see Penn State and Oregon. I mean, come on. That is just not a bright comment. And listen, I will factor this in, too. I mean, I know that it's, quote, football weather. If you guys notice, there are fewer and fewer people out there that really dig on sitting outside when it's freezing-ass cold for a long game. So, I'm sorry. I am incredibly biased. This is perfect. This is perfect. And you know what? If you have $12 seats, I mean, maybe all of a sudden you get the itch. Hey, you know, I'm in Eugene. They got direct flights. Well, let me hop a flight, $12. I'll sit way up here, whatever. How was that wrong? All right, 239-1070 is the number. That was my response to Albert Breer. And again, I'm not trying to protect the flag or defend our honor around here. What I'm trying to do is just point out a high level of numbnuttery. And that's exactly what that particular comment represented. It's not like you get the stagecoach in from Sleepy Eye once a week, all right? They try as best they can, and some people are just going to have to make decisions. Just going to have to make decisions. Especially if you feel that you have the opportunity to go all the way to a national championship game, you're going to have to make some tremendous decisions here. Anyway, just a couple thoughts. All right, 239-1070. Top of the hour, Kevin Bowen, Joe Wrights, bottom of the four. Evan Cidery is going to be in there talking NBA and specifically Pacers. That's coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Neil can start at 239-1070. Hello, Neil. How are you?
I'm good, John. How are you?
Neil, I'm fantastic. Go ahead.
Just a couple observations from last night. One of the things that always stands out to me is that these guys put these little chunks of like really high effort play on the floor. Last night, I think at one point they forced 4 turnovers on 4 trips down the floor against Toronto, and then they come out and then they totally just crap the bed in the fourth quarter. So it's, you know, they're not learning from these lessons that effort is everything.
Yeah, there's no consistency. I mean, you learn a lesson for a minute and then you forget about it, and that's kind of what I described as the first quarter, where in Memphis on Sunday it kind of felt like it was a year ago, and for the next 3, not so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, the other thing is their body language. I noticed last night that Pascal looked really frustrated. That's the second game in a row that he's actually been, like, I saw him talking under his breath. I saw him jawing with an official there for a minute. He looks really, really upset and frustrated.
Yeah.
And Miles looks absolutely just, he looks ambivalent. He looks like he's just not interested in playing right now.
They look like they're dragging ass. They do. Yeah. That's exactly. Yeah. And you know what? And that's a part of it. That's the reality of having things not go well after things went well, and after you were told by everybody that would say it that things went well and they're going to go well again. That's the reality when it has been this disappointing. That's what you get, and that's how you have issues on the bench. That's how you could have issues in the locker room. Those lead up to a lot of things when you're that level of disappointing, both individually and collectively with the team, and that's exactly the body language in their look. No question.
Yep. All right. Thanks, John.
You call anytime. Thank you very much, Neil. All right, quick break. We'll come back. If you're on hold, I'll get to you as well. What time does the stage arrive from Sleepy Eye so we can make sure Albert Breer is on it? Oh, God.
Well, I don't know. There's so much Big Ten fan base.
Yeah, I'm sure. Big Ten. Let's go sit out there. Be about 20 degrees, 50-mile-an-hour wind. That sounds like a blast right there to watch Oregon and Penn State. I'm sure. They don't do that to watch the Bears.
And also, we all know how easy it is getting around Chicago. I mean,
so easy.
Just an easy transportation time.
You walk everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
God, what a stupid-ass comment. I know it sounds like that I'm offended. I'm not offended. I just am pointing out the stupidity of it. right? I think that guy would us, so why not we point out his level of stupidity? Top of the hour, Bowen's going to be here. I mentioned Joe Wrights coming up after 4. And Evan Cidery was right on top of what I talked about the entire time with his Pacer team. If you lose any of the offense, but certainly that much, when you go from number 2 to number 17 offensively in the NBA, you are going to have the problems in which we have seen. There's just no way to make that up. Evan joins us after 5. Don't go anywhere. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan.
Guess not.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, JMV, give me some December songs off the top of your head. This is Counting Crows, A Long December. I hate this song. This is awful. What is it, like 4.5 minutes long, too?
It's about 5 minutes long.
Is it? God. Blah, blah, blah. This is what reminds me of December. No wonder it's supposed to have this kind of tempo, right? December by Collective Soul, that's equally awful, I think. How about December 63 by the Four Seasons?
I don't know that one.
Oh, what a night. That one. Late December back in 63. There are three right there off the top of my head. Nothing that really trips the light fantastic on you, though, for the month of December. There may be more. Now, there's not much at stake here off the top of my head, so I did my best. Damon writes this, JMV, $141 nonstop, $99 connecting flights to Indy on Priceline for this weekend, $274 to Chicago if you were curious, and then just the easy travel of getting around Chicago and getting to Soldier Field. A very walking distance. You can just walk right there. Very easy to get around. Chicago is very easy to walk around and get around in. Albert Breer, seriously. And I know that clown's been here before, right? He comes here, and I'm sure falls in love with everything during the combine. But that was stupid. Really was. JMV, does old Albert think that there are a lot of Oregon alumni living in Chicago because Oregon has been to the Big Ten for a while? Yeah, one season, Case. Exactly. Envy, no one wants to sit on the lake in Chicago at night in December. Hey, JMV, I just finished the Yacht Rock documentary. Thanks for the recommendation. It was a great memory trip. Fantastic. And by the way, Donald Fagen's quote, the phone call with Donald Fagen of Steely Dan, makes everything. That was like the home run of the HBO documentary. Guys, check it out when you get the opportunity. Joe Wrights, bottom of the four. Kevin Bowen, top of the four. Evan Cidery, Pacer issues coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. Pacers back-to-back in Brooklyn coming up later on tonight. Chicago, I believe, on Friday, right? And then Sunday back here versus Charlotte. Phelan's going to come in here right now. Come on in, Phelan. Phelan, do you need help? Go ahead. Go. We're on the air. Go ahead. What are you going to say? Yeah, I'm on the air. Does the light not work out there? I don't care. I waved you in here, brother. Hey, maybe I'll tell you what. Wait until I get done, and then you can come in here. Just come in and hang out, because we're going to need you sometime. Because I know something's probably going to need fixed. So sit tight, Phelan. 239-1070. Todd's on line 2. Hello, Todd. How are you?
Hi, John. Good afternoon.
Hey, Todd. Say hello to Phelan. Phelan's in here. He's one of our great engineers.
I've heard wonderful things.
Go ahead, buddy.
By the way, not your genre.
Yeah.
Merle Haggard. If we make it through December, I believe it was a number one hit for him. James can look it up.
It's Merle Haggard's got to be better than any of the 3 recommendations that I had. Yeah.
But yeah, if we make it through December, so do a search on that one. So that's what I got. And I think you know this from some pictures and some conversation. I sat out in the freezing ass cold. So you. On Saturday night, for about 6 hours, and it's not wonderful, to be honest with you. So, so there's your Soldier Field comp right there.
Yeah, it does not sound like a glorious time. It doesn't. So and again, I mean, you're just going to, as fans too, you're probably going to have to pick and choose what you want to do with your disposable income, right, for this, because you're going to have some layers to this chase for what they believe to be as a national championship.
For sure. Hey, so this is kind of an off the wall question, but
yeah,
and I know there's some mad science behind this, and it probably looks like the chalkboard in Good Will Hunting. But how do they decide when teams have their bye weeks? I feel like the Colts historically have always had a late bye week. And I know a lot of that goes into, for example, this weekend, obviously there's a game Saturday night at the stadium.
Right.
And but the Colts have a bye week, and I'm sure there's a strategy behind that. And a lot of these stadiums have there was a lot of Lions fans at the Taylor Swift show. I'm pretty sure. I mean, that's kind of how it goes. But do we? I mean, is it just? It's probably pretty complex. But I always feel like the Colts have a late bye week for whatever reason, and I'm just kind of curious on your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and Todd, thank you for the call, man. I'll see you out very soon, all right?
Yes, sir.
You got it. Hey, speaking of which, by the way, we'll get to the bye week stuff with Kevin coming up on the other side. I did want to mention Whiskey Business tomorrow. That's Larceny Bourbon Locks, Luna Azul Tequila Shots, Southport Road Whiskey Business tomorrow with Brent Holverson, Slippery Noodle with Bud Light on Friday. Not a Blue Friday, but we're going to get you set for the Big Ten title game without Albert Breer coming up on Friday at the Slippery Noodle downtown. And I will be doing a watch party at Tom's Watch Bar, 4:30 until 6:30 on Sunday, late afternoon, early evening. Tom's Watch Bar, I've heard incredible things. So, join me at any of those three, if not all of those three, coming up Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. Kevin Bowen and I will talk about, really, the late bye, I think, benefits now the Colts more than what we once thought. We'll talk about that and a lot of other stuff with Kevin Bowen coming up next. Joe Wrights, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. Evan Cidery here in the 5 as well. AAA membership. Become a member today. How about number 9 at 239-1070 right now, James? Want to do that? A couple of year-long free AAA Hoosier Motor Club memberships right now. 239-1070. Number 9 is a winner with 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
PE in high school. He was wearing sweatpants. It was really embarrassing, so this song goes out to him.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Damon says, hey, John, didn't Earth, Wind, and Fire remake September for some reason and call it December? I did not. They could, though. Do you remember the 21st of December? But not September. Actually, the 21st of December, I believe that Skids and I will do a live JMV takeover, a live kind of just not on the radio, because obviously B will still be going with Christmas music, I should say, but a live JMV takeover, I think at Joe's Grill in Castleton on the 21st. I believe that is about ready to be solidified. So be ready for that, everybody, on the 21st with me and Skids. That would be a 21st to remember in December if Earth, Wind, and Fire wanted to change up the lyrics on that one. Joe Wrights, bottom of the hour. Evan Cidery. Again, you listened to Tyrese Halliburton last night after the game, and it sounds so very much like Apollo 13 when the reason why the crew in Apollo 13 were not getting the procedures for reentry is because NASA did not have a solution for it. And Tyrese Halliburton sounded like that his teammates and the staff and the Pacers in general do not have a solution for what is going wrong with them right now. Second of a back-to-back in Brooklyn coming up later on tonight. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, let's bring him in here right now for the morning wake-up call with KB and Andy, one of the twin hat wearers every single day, Monday through Friday, 7 until 10 a.m. He's Kevin Bowen. Hello, Kevin.
Morning, John. How are you? Or afternoon. I don't know why I said good morning to you.
A little bit confused, but that's okay. What time do you get up to get in here?
I'm usually 5-ish. You know, if I can get enough done the night before, then I can probably push it a little bit deeper into 5 o'clock. But, yeah, right around there.
5-ish, and you're out the door at what time?
Again, I push that a lot closer. Just in case chaos happens in the Bowen household, I'd like to, be somewhat at home there. So
yeah.
I am I'm about a 6:45 arrival guy.
Oh, are you really? Yeah. See, I could not, and it's really big ups to you for being able to do that. I don't think I could do that. I got to get here and. First of all, I got to get here and take shots with Hammer and Nigel when I'm in studio before we go on. So we got to do that. I don't imagine you and Swebo are downing shots with Dykton, right, before the show?
Well, Matt Bear and I are, Tony Katz and I and Kurt Garland and I and John Herrick and I, we're just all, throwing them back here on a Wednesday morning. So I do play with fire a bit. I mean, especially like what was the day that was the kind of dicey commute in? Tuesday maybe this week?
Yeah.
I got in the car and I'm like, what an idiot. I mean, all it takes is one little, one little blind or one little, I didn't know Capitol was closed here. I didn't know that, now I can't turn on any Reds anywhere in town. So I've been known to try and make a light or two, but I should probably be a little bit more less playing with fire on some of these mornings.
Yeah, I'm assuming Swebo gets in here at 3 a.m. to cut sound, right? Is that what time he gets in here?
Yeah. Somewhere he's searching for Mike Woodson sound that's not from, Jeff Rabjohns' iPhone there. So, yes, he's more of an earlier, I think, worker than maybe I am.
All right. Speaking of sound, I did play, and I'm sure you guys did as well, Tyrese Halliburton after that loss in Toronto last night, and I compared it to Apollo 13 like I do a lot of things in sports because it felt like that he was incredibly down because for he and his teammates, they do not have a solution to their issue. Is that the way it sounded to you?
Yeah, I could certainly read into that. I mean, I thought it was the most candid we've heard, Halliburton the most honest. I honestly think, those words, while, again, grand solutions aren't necessarily in the answer, I do feel like it's probably what you want to hear from your leader and not, we're 22 games into it and we're good. We got plenty of time. I feel like that's kind of the phrase you hear sometimes from whatever players, coaches, when they do have issues. I'd say the alarming things are this. One, it's happening on both ends of the floor. That, to me, is a red flag. It's not like you're resigned to one end of the floor. Two, you had issues when you were healthy. Like, this is not just, hey, you can chalk it up to, all of a sudden, we treat Aaron Nesmith like, he's the missing piece and the greatest puzzle out there. Like, no, that's probably, yes, you miss him, but let's not put him on that pedestal. And then I would say lastly, and Rick Carlisle, touching on it with us yesterday, and certainly he was harping on it preseason, this physicality mantra, the physicality that's been emphasized and or allowed much more in the NBA this season, the Pacers just don't have an answer for it. And frankly, personnel-wise, I don't think they're very equipped to handle physicality very, very well. So, how do you go about that? I mean, does it take personnel changes flat out for you to possibly embrace that a little bit more? Is it a mindset thing? That's probably the most confusing and maybe the most concerning answer, because I think this is how the game is going to be called here moving forward. And either you adjust to it or you're going to continue to struggle like you have. And again, we're seeing on both ends. Offensively, they're not as crisp and free-flowing as we're used to. And then defensively, they just don't hit. And they just don't, play the physical game like some other teams do. I don't think they have the type of defensive personnel and bodies, for example, to handle it. And last night, you watch Scotty Barnes, who, is obviously a very gifted athlete. He plays that game. And your 6'8" wings and Pascal Siakam and Jarris Walker, they don't play that game. And so, I thought last night was a bit of an example of just seeing it here, even in the present.
I think about this, and this is what I saw last night. And I've always said, and I've said this to you and anybody that would listen, is their offense is always going to have to maintain at a very high level. If it fell off at all, they were going to be in trouble because there was just no way they were going to be able to make up for it on the other end defensively. And going from 2 to 17 offensively, where they are right now in the NBA at this point of the season, that is way too much. That's why you get flushed down the stool, as they have been so far this season. And the other aspect is defensively, you may not be physical and you may not be a damn bit good at it, but holy hell, there are some things that you can do, like maybe close out with a hand up on a three-point shooter. Maybe not every single time let the incredibly talented but damn Scotty Barnes get to wherever he feels comfortable on the floor to make a bucket. Same goes for R.J. Barrett. Hey, he's left-handed. Yeah, there's an epiphany right there. Maybe you should set on his left hand a little bit more, not let him go left as he always does. There are little things that could make them better, and for some reason, these guys either refuse to recognize it or refuse to do it.
Yeah, and Rick was worried about this preseason. I mean, he went kind of out of his way, I thought, to bring it up to us and really harped on it. And that's where, I kind of sat there in the preseason and said, wait, you're allowed to be, a little bit more physical. Perhaps that will help the Pacers out defensively because they can't guard to begin with. So maybe now if they're allowed to get away with hand checking or, just general more physicality, that might play to their advantage a bit. But clearly, especially as of late, the defensive numbers as of late, they've started to rival last season. And offensively, outside of it, maybe a couple of games, they have not sniffed, anywhere near last season. Obviously, it was a pretty historic group offensively last year, but still haven't even – there's been multiple games under 100 this season, and I can't imagine there were more than, one or two of those all of last year. So I think that is where, again, you hear Halliburton's comments and just the red flag nature to it of both ends of the floor. When healthy, it's been there. That's where I sit here and think, boy, there is a lot of basketball to be played. There certainly is that. But I think anybody just writing this off like, oh, they'll get it figured out, everything will be fine. Yeah, I can't drink out of that cup right now.
Kev, they scored 23 points in the first stinking quarter. They can't beat anybody doing that. Nobody. And I know that everybody's going to point to defense, and I respect the whole lack of physicality thing, but my ass on this. All right, this is such an offensive issue, and whether it's just teams aren't allowing them or used to what they did a year ago and now trying to prevent that, I'm assuming that's correct because if you were a team, you'd try to do that. But they have guys that are simply put, even without guys that are injured right now, they have dudes that should be stepping up and should be capable of carrying some load, and they simply put are not. And until they get this offensive thing fixed, it is all FUBAR. And this is what we're looking at, whether we're talking about games before the 25th of the season, 25th game of the season in December, or games, further on. If you don't fix this, you're screwed. And that's how they've looked so far, Kev.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think when you and I first I was hesitant to even say it to you. It was probably a couple of Wednesdays ago at this point, but I was like, it's going to start getting late early in terms of that NBA trade deadline and the difficult decisions you're going to have to make if this continues. And again, we're still 2 months away from it. But if you look at the schedule, last week you've got the 4 home games and you're thinking, all right, here's your opportunity. And you get 3 of those wins. But, I kind of compared it this morning to, it's kind of how I feel about the Colts right now and beating the Patriots and the Jets. Obviously, great fourth quarters for a young quarterback. You love that. And you're staying in the playoff race. But I don't sit here and think, slide the banners down in Lucas Oil Stadium. This is going to be a team that is going to be one that no one wants to see in the playoffs. I kind of felt that way about the Pacers last week. Yes, it was 3 wins you needed, but I didn't think you were overly impressive in any of those wins. You played bad teams that were banged up. And now this week, on paper, you have a similar week of, if you look at the 4 games, last night being the first of it, tonight Brooklyn, Friday Chicago, and Sunday against Charlotte. All these teams are outside of the Eastern Conference playoff picture. And, even the Raptors were missing a guy like Emmanuel Quickley and Grady Dick. So it's not like, when you compare injuries to injuries, I don't think it's that different than the Pacers situation right now. And, for you to have squandered that opportunity and now you're on the back-to-back and you look at the rest of December and the schedule is much tougher on paper and it is heavily, on the road as well. Boy, Kevin Pritchard and company are going to have to start making, questions and decisions that they certainly never could have envisioned at the start of the season.
Don't you think if they decide or feel, let's just say this, they feel compelled to make the decisions that you're talking about because this thing has blown up in their face here? I mean, there's going to be a lot of change. There's not going to be a little bit of change. And I know that you can't do a lot because you did max out some guys here. I mean, you're going to have to live with some things. But this, if you feel the need to go that far, it just kind of goes to show you that this was something that wasn't long lasting, and this was something that was more like a comet than anything else. And I don't know, Kev, if I will have been as disappointed in anything in my career here than if this thing does not work out or continues to go down the path that it has so far. Really good group of dudes. You love what they did a year ago. I love how they played up and down the floor. A fun level of basketball to view. And for it to go so sour so quickly, maybe one of the more disappointing things that I have been a part of around here. Hopefully it isn't, but that's how it's going to feel if it turns out that way.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same exact feeling, but it is a little reminiscent of 2015 Colts for me. Those first 3 years of the Andrew Luck era, you took step after step after step. You got to the playoffs as a rookie. You won the playoff game in the second year. You get to the AFC title game in 2014. And in 2015, you're thinking, here we go, all chips in. And again, the difference would be, you made a lot of splashes into that 2015 offseason, whether it was Frank Gore, Andre Johnson, or, even some of the guys on the defensive side. Obviously, the Pacers just opted to run it back. But still, it was a highly, highly anticipated season. So, again, Halliburton's comments last night were different. And from his mouth, I think that does matter. And, again, they're just words. But I am curious, and maybe I'm grasping at straws, frankly. But, is that any sort of, wake-up call that this team needs? Again, you would like to hope that, their overall play so far would have been that. But I am interested to see how they respond to that because I thought Halliburton sounded much differently last night.
General Behringer in War Games had one of the greatest quotes of all time, and it's kind of like an any port in the storm quote where he said, I'd I'd piss on a spark plug if I thought it would do any good. So that's how I feel. Seriously. If it does any good, I don't care what it takes. If it does any good at this point, I would piss on a spark plug if I thought it would do any good. That's where I am with this group right now.
Yeah, I mean, hell, think about yourself, John. Well, I mean, how many games ago was it when you stayed after to try and see if anybody was coming back out on the floor? I mean, that seems like...
Yeah, like 2 weeks ago.
I mean, yeah. And they've played, 6-7 games since then. So I thought last night, I kind of settled in last night thinking, all right, we're going to see something tonight. Just another wake-up call in front end of a back-to-back, and they had beaten you, I thought rather soundly, really, up there a couple weeks ago. And, boy, to start like you did was just so sad, frankly. And then you have to have the miracle of all comebacks, and then, you just run out of steam with that. So
turn it over.
Stunned.
Just turn it over.
Galore. And everybody. I mean, it was everybody's turn. The guys that don't usually turn. I mean, Nembhard looked awful compared to what he looked like on Sunday. McConnell had some turnovers that were so unlike him, and I'm stunned to see that they're favored tonight. I guess probably shows you how obscure that the Brooklyn roster is, but still.
I thought going back to Sunday, first quarter in Memphis, there it is. There it is. There's what we've been waiting on. That's the style of play. That and really wasn't too much to do with Halliburton. It was just team-wise. You felt like things were coming back, and then they gave you 3 quarters of basically what you had witnessed a lot of last night and what we know them to be right now, which leads us back to where we are right now. And it is unfortunate common ground because it is problematic. And with Tyrese Halliburton last night, it just kind of, to me, spoke that they really don't know what to do about it right now.
So I'm going to grab the glass half full. Halliburton did finally look good on the road, but that's about all I've got for you here on this Wednesday.
Hey, Albert Breer's pretty smart. Wait a minute. Albert Breer, people are going to find it tough to get here. Yeah, but Chicago's so much better because, it's a great place to walk around and get to the game and all that. What the hell's wrong with Albert Breer?
Well, you could probably reach out to your former producer and ask him about our text conversation back and forth from earlier today if you'd like a little bit more colorful language that I can't share with you right now. But, it's just a dumb, stupid comment. And given who said it, I'm not the most surprised, if I must be totally honest with you.
Now, do you know him at all?
Enough to know if you would have told me at the start of the day, you will have someone from the national sports media, bitch and moan about Indianapolis hosting a Big Ten title game. And first off, he's an Ohio State fan, so obviously the sour taste of that is still fresh in his mind.
Yeah, I don't know him that well, I guess.
Yeah, I probably could have narrowed it down pretty quickly. And, when I retweeted him today, to me it was pretty obvious. We actually talked about it on air today. We actually brought up, what the secondary ticket market looked like because, I remember saying this whenever, Visit Indy or Sports Core, whoever announced, the re-upping of the Big Ten title game of like, boy, I'm curious with the expansion of the playoff, is it going to matter as much? Because, Penn State and Oregon are in, and one of them is going to host and the other is going to get a bye. If the 4-team playoff is still alive, Penn State would be playing for their season right now. And, that would, I would assume Oregon would still get in. I don't know, maybe a big Oregon loss would knock them out. I don't think it would. But those ramifications would be different. And the biggest thing to me is just travel. I mean, Oregon or Penn State. Look at last night's bracket. So if the bracket plays out how it was last night, Oregon would be on a neutral site for 3 straight games, quarterfinal, semifinal, and final. If Penn State somehow gets on a run, they'd play in Happy Valley round 1, and then they'd be on a neutral site round 1 or quarterfinal, semifinal, and final. So you're asking your fan base to travel to 3 games potentially.
Yeah.
And we're talking significant. These games aren't close to Happy Valley and Eugene. So we're talking significant travel. To me, it's pretty simple. Unless you got obviously Indiana, but drivable teams of an Ohio State. I just think this is how championship games are going to be viewed a bit here, given how much and how expensive it is to travel to these playoff games. You have gone from 1, maybe 2 traveling playoff games, a semifinal and a final, to, now 3, maybe even 4 that's a totally different animal from what you used to have.
Can you tell Albert Breer that we do have a stagecoach that arrives at 2 o'clock in the afternoon from Sleepy Eye every day?
I love that he acts like, Chicago's got all these big alumni. They all can hop on the mega bus and come down here if they really want to watch Oregon and Penn State play in the Big Ten title game. And he acts like, the Indianapolis airport. I mean, I've seen them open up flights to Eugene, direct flight. They're already direct flights to Eugene, and I think several airlines have added Eugene directs here this week. So I just thought it screamed of just sour grape Ohio State fan more than anything.
Huge dumbassery. High-level stuff right
Yes.
there. Yeah.
Well said.
It's Kevin Bowen, morning wake-up call with KB and Andy, 7 until 10 a.m. here on The Fan. Any thoughts before I let you go on the Colts bye week as we get ready coming up the week after this to see them go to Denver for the biggest game of the year, one of the biggest games in a while, certainly since a year ago, obviously, and one that you're going to have to win?
Yeah, I mean, huge times 100. You can't describe it with any more emphasis than that. Yeah, I've been surprised by Denver this season record-wise. I'm not overly impressed by their talent. I wasn't overly impressed by them Monday night, but, Bo Nix is not afraid to make, some big-time throws. And defensively, again, they don't have a loaded group by any means, or I think maybe a star-studded group.
They made plays, though, big plays. Big plays, yeah.
So they certainly got it done. And, what a huge moment for Anthony Richardson. I probably do this a lot just because C.J. Stroud's in the division, but if you compare C.J. Stroud and the type of games he's played in college and the NFL to Anthony Richardson's games he played in college and the NFL, you can make the argument Stroud has played in 8 or 9, maybe even more, bigger games, whether it is a semifinal game at Ohio State or even the Michigan game or, all the primetime games he's played in the NFL. Last year he got the Week 18 game. Last year he got 2 playoff games. So Richardson has not gotten any of that. He didn't get it at Florida, and he hasn't gotten that in the NFL, and he will get something of that out there, and he'll get, a hostile road environment. I don't know how much, New England maybe more than New York, but, that will be a little bit different than what he has had. So, if you want, basically to sum it up, if you want a somewhat realistic chance at making the playoffs, a win is a must, and if you lose, you probably can start looking at mock drafts.
Hey, Kev, here's what General Behringer in War Games said about any possible Pacer solution.
Damn it, I'd piss on a spark plug if I thought it'd do any good.
Did you find that quickly, or is that James's work?
That's James's work. Hey, James, do it again.
Piss on a spark plug if I thought it'd do any good.
God, I love that. That's a great line right there.
Is that going to be Carlisle tonight after taking his third time out in about 3 minutes? I swear last night JJ goes at one point. Tyrese Halliburton in the Pacers huddle said, let's make the Raptors take the next time out. I believe Carlisle took the next time out 2 minutes later, and I think he took the next one like 90 seconds later.
Hey, Kev, I'll give you $100 if you frame a question and ask Rick Carlisle next Tuesday if he would piss on a spark plug if he thought it would do any good. I'll give you a crisp, clean $100 bill.
I think Tuesdays at 8 would probably turn into you joining us instead of Rick Carlisle joining us.
Hey, Rick.
Moving forward.
Now, what would happens if you would urinate on a spark plug? Do we know? I never actually have done that.
Well, yeah. Would it
shock us?
I think it depends on if it was connected to a power source. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not an electrician. I don't know.
Well, yeah. You don't have what? You have to be a mechanic, right? Spark plug?
It's electricity, isn't it?
What do you think, Kev? If one's plugged in somewhere, mechanically speaking, you'd get a shock, right? Just like when we used to back in the day in Greene County, whiz on electric fences.
Yeah, I'm going to go with James on this one. I don't know. This is going to sound wild, and I'm sure it'll be clipped out. But is your flow that strong to really shock you?
Yeah, I need a backsplash, buddy. How about you? Plus, the older you get, the more you go. Like, I have the sensation that I have to urinate as I'm urinating at the time now. That's just how old I am.
I'm there. I'm 35, and I feel like I'm there. I'm peeing. I'm probably peeing twice a night at this point.
I'm telling you what, if it's like I was in Bloomington for the bucket game, we didn't make it to Memorial Stadium, but we did make it to Yogi's Brothers, Crazy Horse, and the Tap. And some of the bathroom situations are tough right there. They are. So.
Yeah, that road game environment could have been easy for you.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. Tomorrow morning, you and Swebo, tell Swebo, man, get a little bit more sleep. He didn't have to get in here at 3 a.m. to cut sound. Okay.
Will do.
All right, buddy. See you, Kev.
See you, John.
Kevin Bowen on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. James, had you seriously never heard that line before?
I have never heard that line before.
General Behringer. That is the I believe he's still with us, Barry Corbin. All right. Have you seen the film No Country for Old Men?
I have seen that film.
The end, he was the sheriff that was shot.
Oh, really?
That Tommy Lee Jones was talking to. Remember how the feral cats are running around his house?
Oh, yeah.
And then for some reason, Tommy Lee Jones got a cup of coffee out of here. What are you doing drinking that?
That's a great scene from that movie.
Yeah,
too.
that's Barry Corbin. That's General Behringer.
Really?
And I think I'd have to check and see if Barry Corbin is still with us. Just an outstanding character actor. Barry Corbin, in fact, I know we got to take a break. Barry Corbin is still with us. Barry Corbin was also an urban cowboy.
He was in Lonesome Dove.
God, I love Barry Corbin. He is 84 years old. Leonard Barry Corbin has been married not once, not twice, but 3 times. But man, some significant roles back in the day. And one of those being in War Games in 1983 and General Behringer. We just introduced that to James. Stir crazy, too. Hey, quick break. We'll come back. We've got Joe Wrights coming up at the bottom of the hour. So let's get going here. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Lemonheads, my dad's boat. You won't go down 'cause
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
No, crank this up. This is it right here. That's it? I had no idea they had this. This is like the one, actually, there's a handful of holiday songs I can get down with this. I want to wait on this a little bit. Is that cool? Joe, hang out just for a second and listen to this. I know Joe's moving in his chair right now. The Earth, Wind, and Fire classic September, but it's December. That's good stuff right there. Skids, make a note of that. The JMV Takeover live version on the 21st of December. Needs to have this as a part of the mini mix right there. That's awesome. Got to do that again. I think September by Earth, Wind, and Fire is top 3 song all time with me. Baker Street, Ebony Eyes. Those would be 370 songs, though, too. September's got to be there.
Looks like they also have one based on the song Happy Feelin' called Happy Season.
Well, hell. I love that. That's December. No, that's not Earth, Wind, and Fire, is it?
It is actually Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Wind, and Fire.
Yep,
they did that as a reboot.
They have a holiday album. There's a bunch of classic holiday songs, but then they have, it looks like, 2 kind of holiday-themed takes on some of their original songs.
I have been so numb to holiday season music that apparently I have completely skipped over the fact that Earth, Wind, and Fire has a holiday album like that. Not bad. It's awesome. Andy Moore, Automotive Group Hotline. Former Colts offensive lineman, a part of the Colts pregame huddle with me and others before every Colts home game. You will see him in Touchdown Town with us. Joe Wrights. Hello, Joe. How are you?
John, how's it going? It's great to hear Earth, Wind, and Fire. You got me in the music spirit, and that holiday album, I'm going to check it out because, as you know, I love Christmas music. I'm all in the Christmas music season. But to diversify, I'm going to have to check out that album.
What's your favorite Christmas song?
Oh, no question. The top 3, and I don't even think this is debatable, but Bing Crosby,
right.
White Christmas,
okay.
Nat King Cole, the Christmas song, or Chestnuts Roasting an Open Fire, and then Oh Holy Night, I like Celine Dion and Josh Groban. Throw Andrea Bocelli in there. They have both got great versions of that song. But that's my top 3 Christmas right there.
See, I get my favorites, if you want to call it that, from a very special Christmas album that was released, I think, in 1986. A very special Christmas. Wham! And Last Christmas is on it. Christmas in Hollis, Run DMC's on it, and U2 is Christmas songs on it. So that's the one I can get with besides anything classic from Burl Ives. I could do classic Burl Ives.
We actually had a big debate at the office today. Last Christmas is like in my bottom 5.
Is it?
And I assumed everybody else would be in alignment with me, and everybody else in my office is like, "No, you're crazy. We love that song." So I'm in the minority there.
Man, well, that's well done. Yeah, check out I had no idea until today. Earth, Wind, and Fire's holiday album. What was that, James? 2015 is when they produced that?
The holiday album?
Yeah.
2014 is when it came out.
2014, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and not September, but December. That would go well, I think, in the Wrights household on Christmas Eve right there. That sound good?
No question. We'll check that out for sure.
You struggling in voice today?
Yeah, I feel great, but like a lot of people, I'm sure there's a million things going around on Thanksgiving. All of a sudden, I woke up today and my voice wasn't great. But I don't even have the radio show to blame on it, right? I usually could blame Gorman for always yelling in our ear, and then we got to talk really loud and yell into the microphone. But it's nice to chat with you without the great Jeffrey Gorman not being in our ear all the time and interrupting our good football conversation.
Well, let's talk about the groove. that's happening right now, if you want to call it that. All right, you win, come from behind style against New England in Foxborough. You did the same a couple of weeks prior, with the Jets. And is there an evolution of sorts going on here, or is it more just a pattern that they're beating teams that they should, even on the road in these circumstances? How do you view this, especially going into a bye week and then the must-win game in Denver?
Yeah, I mean, the couple things that come to my mind are, the last 3 games since Richardson has come back, you beat the teams that you should, and you lost to Detroit, who I would argue is the best team in the NFL. But what I like, John, is the way that the Colts have won those games. First, you're putting up points. You put up 28 and 25. Which, I mean, you got to be in that mid-20s and above, down the stretch here. But it's the comeback wins. It's the fourth quarter drives from Richardson. And I really believe that right now within that locker room, there's a belief that, okay, if the game's close, if we got a chance to win it, we know that this guy can get it done. And I tell you what, as an offensive guy, as somebody on that sideline, that's a great feeling to have. That's the feeling you have when Peyton Manning was in the huddle or Andrew Luck. And it's like, no matter what happened in the fourth quarter, if we got the ball, we're going to go down and win the game. And I think Richardson has delivered that. I mean, that 19-play drive in New England, there were 4 gotta-have-it moments. Right? 3 4th downs in the 2-point conversion, any one of those falls and you lose the football game. But 2 passes, 2 with his legs, and I just think his ability to run the ball and his ability to run the ball in the red zone when the game's on the line is just so unique. It's a trait that he has that no other quarterback in the NFL has, right? Josh Allen, you could throw in there a little bit, but he's not the same runner that Richardson is, and I just think that gives the Colts such a competitive advantage. I mean, we beat New England because they were 2 of 6 in the red zone, and we were 3 of 4. And they moved the ball all over the field. But I think move forward, you have that ability, but I think what you have more than anything is you have a belief in AR5, and you have a belief that, hey, this guy can get us done, and this can take us where we want to go, even with his passing stats, what they are. And, again, a lot of that's, contributed to some drops. But I think that's one. And then the second is I think we finally have an offensive identity. If you ask me our identity after week 4 or week 8, I would say we don't have one, and that's not a good place to be. But we saw the formula last week. Jonathan Taylor, 25 carries, Richardson, 10-ish design runs, and then you're throwing the ball, especially the deep ball that we got to get, loose a little bit, especially with Pierce down the field. And, but we won that game without Josh Downs, who, is our best wide receiver and the guy that's most able to get open, especially on 3rd down. But you have that identity that if we can do those 3 things, hone into that, and do those really well, we got a shot. And I think, the offensive line, credit to them, you had guys that were coming in, and Glowinski, hadn't played at all this year, and he played great. And Gonzalez on the right side, which I think he's more of a right tackle. We'll see what happens, with Braden Smith if he was able to come back. But Ryman getting back in there at left tackle, and I thought Nelson really played well. And Pinter's played well when he's been at center, more so than guard within this team. So, but hopefully you get Ryan Kelly back, and you get Braden Smith back, and you got Glowinski in there who's a mauler at right guard. And I think that leaning on that offensive line down the stretch, especially when you're in December football, we're going out to Denver for the season, in a must-have playoff game, and who knows what the weather's going to be like. Being able to run the ball, control the ball with the line, and we got two premier runners in Taylor and Anthony Richardson. Really nobody else in the NFL has that. To me, that's the secret sauce for the Colts here down the stretch in the last 4.
Joe Wrights is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Joe, have we just seen them, and we talked about this, I think, going into his first game reboot, his first game back as the starter. You got to turn him more loose. You got to let him be who he is right now, and hopefully he evolves certainly much better as a passer down the road, but you got to let him be why you drafted him right now. Have we seen that in the play calling offensively from the Colts, letting Richardson be more of what they drafted him for, both running it and throwing it in the play calling, than trying to protect him or at least force him into something that he just simply isn't right now?
Yeah, for sure. And I think since he's come back, I think Shane's done a great job these last 3 games of putting him in a position to be successful. And the reality is, he likes running the ball. He's good at running the ball. And when you run him early, it gets him settled in the game. I mean, so many guys I talk to, it's like, all right, I want to get hit early in the game because then I'm settled in and then I know that things are good, and I feel more comfortable with where I am. And I think we've seen that, and I think you got to be able to run him on designer runs 10-ish times a game, because not only is that getting you yards, getting him in rhythm, also the more of those design runs you call, the more the defense has to allot for it, and they got a plan for it, and that opens up Jonathan Taylor, and that opens up the downfield passing game.
So Joe Wrights, he's with us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Hey, give me one thing before I let you go here and save your voice that absolutely has to get better. I mean, we can point to the passing game, which you really want to. I don't know how much better it's going to get, even with Josh Downs back. But what absolutely has to get better for this team to have more than a fighting chance at this thing down the stretch?
I mean, to me, it's on the defensive side of the football, and obviously we've had some struggles in the passing game and containing teams in yards, and May was 80%, and had his best game of his career against us. But to me, it's stopping the run on defense. New England ran for 200 yards. They ran for 6.5 a carry. And when you do that, you dictate the game. You get in 2nd and 4 and 3rd and 2, and they're easier to convert. And when we go out there to play Denver and Bo Nix, you got to put him in 3rd and 7+. And if we do that, I really like our chances. And that's what's exciting to me. You're the Colts right now. You get the late bye. So you got a bunch of time to rest and recuperate and get recharged physically, mentally, emotionally. And then you're going down to a 4-game stretch. But it's all about Denver, because the reality is, and I can look forward now, as a fan and media on the other side, you beat Denver and you're playing, with Lawrence going on IR, you're playing, Mac Jones, you're playing Will Levis, and whoever New York's going to play at quarterback to get into the playoffs. And that's what's exciting to me, is that we really control our own destiny if you're the Colts. And this game against Denver, I mean, it's the biggest game of the year, but, I mean, it's a de facto playoff game, and that's super exciting, and that's going to motivate these guys for sure, in the next week and a half leading up to that game next Sunday.
It's Joe Wrights, Colts pregame huddle, as always, with us. And get that voice better, all right? And go out and grab yourself some Earth, Wind, and Fire holiday version and enjoy that with the fam.
Get a little hot tea and some Earth, Wind, and Fire. You're telling me that's kind of the formula and the recipe.
That's the solution for what ails you right now, my brother. It is.
All right. Well, always great talking to you, and we'll chat soon.
You got it, buddy. Thanks. It's Joe Wrights on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Saudi Arabia is offering how much money to get a rematch with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson? Lord of mercy, just throw that stuff around. That coming up, Evan Cidery, top of the hour. Just what simply will not work at all for the Pacers, and we've seen a lot of it so far this season. We'll talk to Evan about that coming up at the top of the hour. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Become a AAA Hoosier Motor Club member today. We'll give you a chance to do that by winning a year-long free membership. But you also got to think about doing that for yourself as well. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
dong. 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Earth, Wind, and Fire. Holiday season. What's this called, James?
Happy Seasons.
Happy seasons are upon us. Ooh, that's close. That's good. I know inside the AAA Membership Lounge YouTube Live, you guys can't hear it. I apologize for that. I can get down with this Christmas music right here. Why don't they play that on B?
Well, you can play it on B when you're doing the takeover.
I do like this, though, man. Earth, Wind, and Fire. Hey, I mentioned this, too. Saudi Arabia has offered $700 million for a rematch between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. Tyson will receive the full $700 million if he knocks out Jake Paul within 3 minutes. Why in the world would anybody want to do that again? Seems like once was enough right there. Double Trouble says, I just listened to Earth, Wind, and Fire's version of Little Drummer Boy. Amazing. Do you have that over there, James? It's outstanding. Hey, tell Joe Wrights, who thinks only Indy has two premier runners with Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. There's a team in Baltimore, too. Noel Heavy says that. And a shout-out to Jason Hutton, who's inside that AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live, not hearing the songs that we're playing. And, again, our apologies there. Speaking of which, how about two winners? AAA year-long membership. That's AAA Hoosier Motor Club. Somebody's got your back 24/7, 365. Matt and Matt are going to offer it up here. Number 9 at 239-1070. A AAA Hoosier Motor Club year-long membership for free for you at 239-1070. That and Evan Cidery explains, along with me, what has gone so haywire with the Pacers so far this year. He joins us coming up at the top of the hour. Stay put. 93.5, 107.5, The Fan. high level since last year, and I've always stated they are simply not going to be as good as they're going to need to be defensively, so you cannot have a slide off offensively. And unfortunately for this Pacer team so far this year, the slide off has been massive for them, and that's why we see, to me, beyond the injuries, beyond the whistle or the change in whistle from last year to this year, that to me is most noted as to why we find them where they are entering tonight.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, John. I think we saw last year how special, elite that offense is. It was able to help carry how awful the defense was last year. But now this year, the offensive rating has dropped off almost 10 points per 100 possessions this year for the Pacers. They were ranked second in offensive rating last year. Now it's down to 17th this year. That's a massive drop-off, the most of any team so far this year in the NBA. And the defense is not really helped out at all. They're still 25th in defensive rating this year. So having a historic offense was able to help buoy that bad defense last year, John. But if they're not able to be at least passable or elite on the offensive end, and they're not improving on the defensive end, you're looking like a sub-500 team, which is what this team is right now.
Yeah, well, and I mentioned this. All you have to do is go to last night. You go to last night and watch them put up 23 points in the first quarter. That's not going to get it done against anybody for this team, the way they play defensively. It just won't.
Right. And the structure of this team, I think you're missing guys like Aaron Nesmith, I think, is really being missed right now as far as wing defense and his one-on-one ability on the perimeter. But overall, the way teams are just able to easily get around the basket, wide open threes, a lot of miscommunications, it feels like, too, John, where this shouldn't be an issue already this late in the year for Indiana, core the way through the season. So that's one thing I'm looking out for, especially tonight, too. Like a game like tonight on the second night of back-to-back against the struggling Brooklyn Nets, who have been better than expected this year, but they're really intentionally trying to tank at this point. If they lose or at least have a close win tonight, that's where I'm going to really start to get the warning signs going a little bit more.
He's Evan Cidery covers the NBA and more for Forbes on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline with us. I will get back to the defense here and the lack of communication and the discombobulation that comes along with that. But I think we also witnessed that offensively. Now, how much of that, and I'm not going to factor in the missing pieces right now because they've had enough of this core group around, I think, not to look the way that they've looked offensively so far. But I would ask you, the change in whistle, how much has that, do you think, affected them offensively from what we knew them to be a year ago to what we know them and what we have seen so far this season?
I think it's a little bit, but I would say most of it, honestly, is just the inconsistencies of some offensive players. Like we've seen, it's probably been talked about a lot, too, nationally and locally. The struggles of Tyrese Halliburton, who's finally starting to get it going over the last week or so. But in the first 15 games of the year, Johnny was a bottom 10 point guard in the NBA as far as efficiency goes. As we all know, he's not a great defender. So him being able to turn it back up a little bit, that's really helped them over the last couple of games. But you're seeing Miles Turner being inconsistent inside the three-point line, which is really a big drop-off from where he was last year. And then again, like Mathurin, I think he's been the one good guy as far as getting to the line this year for free throws. But everyone else outside of that has really struggled, especially a guy like Pascal Siakam, who, I don't know about you, John, but it feels like every since he got here to Indiana, I feel like his whistle has not been the best for Siakam. It was a lot better in Toronto, but now so far in Indiana has not been the same. So I think that's definitely a good point that you made there. But I would say more, it's really going to fall big on the shoulders once more of Tyrese Halliburton. Again, I think it'd be the old Tyrese Halliburton that'll help change a lot for this.
Well, and I've called him the orchestrator, and if he doesn't orchestrate and with himself offensively and for everybody else, then this thing, simply put, will not work. But I did want to ask you about Siakam. Because a lot of these great memories, especially at the highest of paces, so much of that came along before he was acquired. And what is it? He's top 5 in post touches, I think, right now in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And I got to argue with people all the time about, well, Miles got to get in the post. You need a post player. This offense is not predicated on that. One's enough. And sometimes I kind of wonder if one, in this case, as much as they go to him, is too much. How much do you factor in what he is as an offensive threat compared to what this team is best at doing? And I mean total team-wise offensively.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting balance that they're still trying to strike. And like you mentioned about Miles, he's really throughout his career, Miles has never been a post player. He is a guy that we've seen the last couple of years, and he fits really well with Pascal Siakam on this aspect. you have to have a guy who can space the floor for a Pascal Siakam, who's having a great shooting season, but he's known for his spins and his drives around the rim, driving to the basket, getting easy shots there. And Turner's there to help space the floor. He's not there to be a guy who clogs the paint up. But with Pascal Siakam, I think they're really trying to mix in more and more of him, because we saw in the postseason, John, when he's in those one-on-one matchups, when they desperately needed a bucket, they went to those Siakam vintage moves that he has in his bag, and it worked out more often than not. I think they're trying to blend a little bit, having Tyrese run the show, be a super fast offense, but also at the same time realize that Pascal Siakam is really your 1B to his 1A, and you got to get him really involved in what he does best around the rim and on drives. So I think it's a little mixture of Carlisle changing the scheme a little bit offensively to try to fit Siakam into it more. But I think at the same time, you might be sacrificing more of that pace that we saw last year, where they're going up and down the court in 3 to 5 seconds and getting into a set. Feels like it's a little bit slower this year. And that might be part of the reason why their offensive struggles.
Well, and we can see what they're trying to do, how they're trying to work this offensively, and we see it with Siakam, because obviously he's go-to on the interior. But he didn't last night. He didn't shoot it well at all in his old place, Toronto. But he's, 41% from distance and taking a higher volume of three-pointers. I can't remember a time, and maybe there was in his Raptors past, where he took this many. He has, for the most part, looked a lot better in doing that. So I think that's part of how they're trying to implement, some of the old that they had with the new that they have, even though he is so good in and around the basket in half-court situations. But Evan, this team is just not good offensively if they slow it down and play in the half-court.
Right, and I think it's a really good point, too. Siakam's having a career-best season efficiency-wise, career-best in true shooting percentage, three-point percentage, three-point rate. But at the same time, you have to realize, too, an interesting stat from the Pacers is they have 4 players carrying above a 20% usage rate. So really, over 85% of the offense, John, is in 4 guys, which is Siakam, Miles Turner, Tyrese Haliburton, and Benedict Mathurin. I feel like I know those are 4 really good offensive players, but maybe 2 of those guys, like Mathurin, like Miles Turner, need to take a little step back on the usage, let Haliburton be like the old Haliburton, let Siakam be like Siakam was last year, and kind of let those guys cook a little bit more. I know they're trying to share the rock a little bit, have those guys get their equal opportunities. But like we saw last year, John, when Haliburton has the ball in his hands 60, 70% of the time, when he's getting into sets in really quick fashion, when Siakam's playing off him in a 1-5 rotation, that's really deadly. It's really one of the most, I think, personally, one of the top duos to stop when they get in a rhythm. And I think you need to see more of that. Have Mathurin, have Turner space the floor more instead of trying to get them in their sets. And it's more of a striking balance. I think they're still trying to figure it out almost 25% of the way through the season here. I think it's something to monitor, because you have to see this old Pacers offense function how it used to before, and right now they're just not doing that. I think you have to get back to their old game a little bit.
And I've seen this from the start of the season too, Evan, and I've pointed this out a number of times, and this is just a fraction of what they're trying to do offensively, but we saw so much success when they were running high ball screen action between Haliburton and Miles last year, and it is not nearly as productive nor successful so far this season. And the other aspect is Miles at times seems like he's a walking, moving screen call. And I don't remember that happening. I don't remember having as much with him and what they're trying to do with that action alone offensively a year ago, but it is just not as productive. It almost felt like whether he picked and popped and shot a 3, or if he did a dive to the rim and got something close, maybe a dunk or maybe a layup, maybe getting to the foul line. That happened a lot more. Also, what we haven't seen happen a lot more is Tyrese getting around his guy on the high ball screen and roll action. He just simply put has been unable to break his guy down for the most part so far this season. And that is, to me, in just a fraction of what they try to do and try to do successfully offensively, is what stands out compared to how good it was a year ago.
Yeah, and that was a big talking point, John, to the first month of the season was Tyrese Haliburton did not look anything like himself. I know he didn't play in the Olympics, but I think what he did last year was overcompensate and try to make the All-NBA team to the point where he really did some long-term damage to him. It won't really be a career impact thing, but it is a little bit concerning to me, John, that into this season, next season, that he's having a back issue just because of the hamstring injury that he had last year. That's something that I think he's taking day by day and getting fully 100% healthy. I think we're getting to that point where he's looking like his old self again. But it was bad the first month of the season. Like you said, he wasn't able to get by any guy on the perimeter. We saw last year one of the best things the Pacers did was have Halliburton drive by his guy, get the guy in the corner or Miles when he's trailing on the back end to get a wide open three, and Halliburton created that gravity. That has just not been a part of this team's offense so far over the last month of the season, and that has to return. It really is, again, on the shoulders of Tyrese Halliburton. He is the engine of this offense. He's a superstar of this team. He's a $250 million man too, John. Like, he has to play better. He has to play more consistently like that superstar player. And I think once Halliburton gets back to his full self, it'll help the offense. But at the same time, you have to have a historic offense to carry a really bad defense. And so far, this offense has been nowhere near historic, and you're seeing the results in the court.
Now, I've red flagged this already at this point. When do you seriously look into this as being not just an issue to start the season, but this is basically who these guys are going to be until further notice? When does it really start to worry you?
I would say just because I'll throw the injury caveat in here for this Pacers team, because you're just now getting Andrew Nembhard back. Aaron Nesmith's still on the lineup. He should be coming back later this month. I'd give this team until, let's say, mid-January, about 4 to 6 weeks from now. If they're still struggling around 500 at that point, that's when I'd really start to blow the warning signs up to a bigger level than they are. I think right now you're figuring out the kinks of Tyrese Halliburton, getting him fully back 100% to what he is, getting Siakam integrated into this offense as well, and then getting guys like Nembhard and Nesmith back in this rotation is going to help out a lot, in my opinion. But I would say about another month or so, John, because this is a team to me. I mean, if we want to talk a bit about the trade deadline in February, they have some interesting pieces. If they want to go out and make a win-now move, they can. But I think it's going to really all come down to this next month or so to decide who's a part of this team moving forward and who's a part of this core.
He's Evan Cidery of Forbes, national NBA writer on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So some options maybe that you've thought of, not that they're going to go either direction, but what they could do for the good of the team if they figure things out, or what they may be forced to do to the detriment of what they've done because things obviously are not working out for them. Some comparisons on both sides there.
Yeah, I think if things do work themselves out, the Pacers are going to be a team that doesn't make any moves. They're going to be it's going to really turn into Nembhard coming back and Nesmith coming back being great pieces of this rotation, and they help really settle down a lot of these issues they have right now. You have Tyrese Halliburton. If he's able to get back to himself, that'll really help out and really cause a lot of those concerns to die down too. But I do believe that a guy, for example, who I will admit I was banging the drum all last season for him, Jarris Walker has not looked great this year. He's had his moments. He's had some flashes here and there, but at some points looks like a deer in the headlights on the court, which is to be expected at some points. But it is his second season. I think it's a little bit surprising. He's still a little bit slower on his development than I expected as far as being a two-way player. He's a guy to me where he still has value around the league, John. If things do not turn out well soon, he's a guy to me I think you could involve in a trade talk to go get a guy from, let's say, hypothetically speaking, no reporting here, like a Cameron Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets, who's a really good shooter who can play the 3 and the 4. That's a guy to me that might be able to help this team out if things continue to go south. But if they do get better, it's going to be because guys like Halliburton, Siakam, they're non-healthy players are going to get back and help them and make an impact. I think that's where you're going to be looking at, is this team continuing to run it back, have this young rotation build together, and then you don't make any moves. But let's say in mid-January, John, they're still struggling. They're around 500 or below that. You could see a guy like Jarris Walker, I think, be involved in the conversation, then maybe go get a guy who can help you right now compared to a Jarris Walker, who really seems like at this point another year or two away.
So you look at Jarris Walker, and from what we were told and what they liked and what we thought he was going to be, a defensive presence, a rebounding presence, a guy that can throw some D out there too, athletic. And most of the time, he's just kind of a step into extra pass, three-point shooting guy. And that's about it. I should say three-point shot-taking guy. It just doesn't seem like he's at all evolving into what we thought, what we were told he was going to be.
Yeah, and I think the Pacers are quite frankly surprised at that too, because if you go back and watch Jarris Walker play at Houston and what he is now, completely different player. He was so much more aggressive, driving to the rim. He was posterizing people. He was dunking on people, letting people know it in their face. Now he's just a spot-up guy, like you mentioned. He's just shooting his threes. He's a very passive player right now. Maybe it's more so him trying to still find himself within this rotation as a full-time guy getting 15, 20 minutes per game. But the early signs here are not great. He has looked very passive. He's not looked like an aggressive scorer. And defensively, too, I know he was a great defender in college, and he easily was viewed by NBA executives as the best defender coming out of the draft last year. Now he's a guy he's still continuing to develop in that aspect, but it's not to the point where it's elite. He's a guy you can't take off the court because of his defense. He's still gambling too much. He's struggling a little bit against some matchups that are a little quicker than him. But I think Jarris Walker, to me, is a perfect case example here, John, of a guy where the Pacers drafted him. He's not exactly what they've expected so far. The question is they've already paid Halliburton $250 million, Siakam over $200 million. You owe Miles Turner probably a big payday here soon as well, and potentially Benedict Mathurin. You already paid Nesmith, Nembhard, Obi Toppin. Walker's kind of the guy here where if you want to make a move, he's probably the guy that's a year or two away from everybody else as far as on the same timeline of winning right now. Because that's the thing that I think Pacers fans need to realize. You paid Halliburton, you paid Siakam. The time to win is right now. That's what this ownership group has said with putting the money that they have on this group. The time is to win. And a guy like Walker, to me, might be the trade chip to go and get another guy.
All right, let's just say this doesn't work out, though. What goes down with Miles? You think regardless he comes back and gets extended, or is there a long, hard thought put into this if things don't go the way that they expected?
I think there should be a lot of thought and discussion, John. Me personally, I would pay Miles Turner because I don't see a better fit on the market next year and potential trade talks that fits what they need as far as a floor spacing five, a great rim protector. He fits well in this culture. I think Miles Turner makes a lot of sense there. But also this ownership group, as you know, John, has never, ever paid the luxury tax. And if they do pay the luxury tax, it'll be because they're paying Miles Turner. So that will be the big discussion point here is, are the Simons, are they willing to finally pay that luxury tax for a championship contender? Because it's going to be paying Miles Turner to do that. Because if not, that means Miles Turner is somewhere else, in my opinion.
What teams out there could use him?
A lot. I mean, every single team in the NBA, I think, could use a floor spacing stretch five who can give you 2 to 3 blocks per game and give you about 15 points per game. He'd be a perfect third or fourth option on a lot of championship contenders. I think you'd be hearing a lot of teams that for some reason the Pacers made Miles Turner available, John. They would get a lot of people that are interested and probably pay a high price for him too.
What's the comparison out there? I try to give comparisons to people all the time. They start arguing to me because, they think we're still playing basketball in 1995 in the NBA, and they try to argue with me about what a post player or what their vision of a five is. And I said this is not how they play, nor how they want to play. That's why he has been a fit here. But what other guys out there would be a fit here? And I'm not suggesting they're guys that could end up here at all, but I'm just trying to give a comparison to folks out there from you that don't understand the value of him and what it means to this team.
Just to clarify, so let's say they're shopping Miles Turner where they could get back in return. Is that what you're saying?
No, just a similar player to him that would work here.
Oh, gosh.
That would be completely unavailable. Yeah, completely unavailable.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of players that are even a similar model to him. And I am trying to think of potentially a guy like that, maybe a Jaren Jackson Jr. Obviously, he won't become available for Memphis, but there's not a lot of archetypes out there that fit Miles Turner. A stretch five could be a 40% three-point shooter, an elite rim protector that shows in the blocks per game numbers. There really is not a lot of guys out there. Unless you find a generational center prospect the next year or two in the draft, there is maybe 2 or 3 guys that play like Miles Turner. I think Pacers fans have to realize that, too. There are not many modern-day centers who fit the offense as well as Miles Turner does.
Well, Porzingis in Boston's kind of similar. Karl Anthony Towns, I think there's some similarities there. I'm just trying to – what they want to do in this era of the NBA, there are very few of these type of guys. And certainly, as you mentioned, I think rightly so, no availability for any of these guys out there.
Right, and we just saw Karl Anthony Towns, who fits that archetype. He went for Julius Randle, a former, even he's a much maligned player, but an all-star in Julius Randle, a great player in Dante DiVincenzo in draft capital. That's what you're probably looking at with a Miles Turner trade, a really good player in return, a draft pick or two. But even with the expiring contract, that makes it a little bit difficult there. But Miles Turner, trust me, there would be so many teams interested in Miles Turner. I think looking back on now the Lakers – a couple of years ago when all that things was going on with the Lakers, with them Buddy Hield and Miles Turner trade talks, they're probably kicking themselves now looking back on that where they could have gotten Miles Turner, and now he's flourished into the player that he has.
So Evan Cidery right there, Forbes and more. It's good to have you back, man. We'll stay in touch here and see if they can't get this thing turned around starting tonight. But it didn't seem like that Tyrese Halliburton had too many answers nor solutions for what ails them after that game last night in Toronto, buddy. We appreciate that. Have a great holiday season. We'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, you too, John. Anytime. Thanks again.
Evan Cidery on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. We'll come back. I got stuff for you tomorrow. I'll tell you what is now going to be offered to you when we're live down on Southport Road at Whiskey Business. Yes, you're going to have Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna Azul Tequila shots, but something a little bit extra from our AAA membership friends, Matt and Matt, tomorrow on the show. Quick break. We're back with you next. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, fellas, the MoyerFineJewelers.com's legit. Holiday season this week. Got to check that out. That free mounting right there. Woo! Engagement ring-wise, you know that to be a big deal. And a shout-out to Dan Moyer and Lauren, Moyer Fine Jewelers in Carmel. The last time we did our Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna Azul Tequila Shots, it feels like forever because we were off last week with Thanksgiving. We're back on coming up tomorrow, our Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna Azul Tequila Shots, of course, down on the south side. Southport Road, you can be with us coming up tomorrow at Whiskey Business. Should be an absolute blast, so here's to hoping you can make it. But it seems like a while now since we did our picks. Week 14 starts tomorrow night in the NFL at 8:15. This one's not bad. Ford Field, Lions at 11-1, and the Packers at 9-3. Of course, a bye week for the Colts. Next up in Denver, a bye week for the Broncos. Broncos won at home over Cleveland on Monday Night Football. Some of the games of interest around the NFL coming up this weekend. Yeah, you see. Seahawks, Cardinals, probably NFC West, 7-5 and 6-6. 10-2 Bills on the road. It's a 4:25 start on Fox. Coming up on Sunday, 6-6 LA, the Rams. Chargers and Chiefs. Yeah, I know. I'm kind of looking around tier 2 and not finding some greatness. Chargers and Chiefs, 8-4 and 11-1 from the toilet in Kansas City, coming up on Sunday night at 8:20. Monday nighters, the Bengals and the Cowboys. That's 4-8 and 5-7 right there. So yeah, 6-6 and 10-2 Falcons and Vikings. But there are some dog. I'm not talking about underdogs here, but some dog games for sure in the mix here coming up. But we'll pick them. We shall pick them coming up tomorrow with Brent Halverson from Heaven Hill Distillery, our Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna Azul Tequila Shots. So hopefully we'll see you down at Southport Road. And Whiskey Business coming up tomorrow. JMV, you know exactly what has caused the Pacer suckage. Yes, sirs. Yeah, as much as I don't like it, and again, as I'll reference General Behringer in War Games, I would piss on a spark plug if I thought it would do any good. Maybe it would if you yanked that yes, sir stuff. And this is not just me. It's not being old and crotchety. I remember 10 years plus ago when people would say or call them or reference them the sirs. And I hated it then. And it's even more magnified now. Sirs. C-E-R-S. Who came up with that idea over there? Do we know? Did you ever ask Pat Boylan that? Would he know?
I could shoot him a text.
Yeah. Yeah, I hate it. So, yeah, I don't know if it would have any bearing whatsoever. Probably wouldn't. But I don't think it would be a bad idea if you lost that thing. This is from Matt. JMV, the Pacers look like a complete dumpster fire, and I have no idea what the fix is. I will stop right there, too, Matt. I mentioned this. I don't think they do. I don't think Tyrese Halliburton, as he sounded, as dejected the sound of his voice after the game. Tyrese had a nice game last night in Toronto. His team, not so much. 23 and 25. That's 23 points in the first quarter, 25 points in the second quarter. They're not beating anybody offensively playing like that. But I don't think they know right now, Matt. What, new coach? They're not doing that. Trade players? I don't think they're going to do that. Injuries excusable? Now, they may want to do that, but I'm not. Their core group has been there not to have games as we've witnessed like this. And as much as you want to factor in the defense being awful, their offense has been awful. Compared to what it was and what it needs to be, what it should be, it's been awful. Number 2 to number 17 is a rather profound plummet that, simply put, as I've said all along, cannot happen. And it has, and that's where they find themselves right now. Either way, JMV, a big ball of trash, and they're getting tossed out of gyms into the trash can across the league. That's from Matt. Jimmy writes this: I don't know if it's at all about the rest of the league figuring it out as it is more about the Pacers' complete lack of execution. I would absolutely, Jimmy, agree with that. 100%. To me, the most troubling is the turnover uptick. It goes with this team attitude and a lack of attention to detail, something amiss. And you saw that at the beginning of the game last night in Toronto. If there's anything that will drive you nuts, and if there's anything that's going to lead you to scoring 23 points in the first quarter or 25 in the second quarter, it is the amount of turnovers, especially what they had early. The Pacers turned it over 20 times. That's the equivalent of the Colts getting flagged for 20 penalties. Check that, 10 penalties in that game against the Lions. What that does, that derails everything. So if you're looking for some of the reasons why, those are some of the reasons why right there. Yeah, thank you, Jimmy, for that. I completely agree. I did want to mention this. It was 4 years ago today, and it still seems like yesterday, that we lost our friend, and I mean all of us, DJ Indiana Jones. Can you believe that? 4 years ago today. But I miss him a great deal, and I'm not the only one. He just brought so much to everybody around here. Just an all-around great guy, and I was reminded of that because good friend Tony Donahue sent me this a little bit earlier. It's a picture of me and Tony and Kyle Knezovich, actually upstairs when we were on 6 with DJ Indiana Jones. He used to bring in just classic hip-hop artists to me all the time, and on this day, he brought in Eric Sermon of EPMD, and it was awesome. But 4 years ago today, we lost our good friend DJ Indiana Jones, and it still hurts. I still miss him as much today as I did then. Bill Cass says, JMV, I love winning the AAA membership. Good for Bill right there. Well done. Hey, JMV, you're looking anywhere from 47 to maybe 52. I'll take it. Most importantly, you're feeling good. Now, if we're talking about maturity, let's just say that I can relate to not acting even close to my age. I am right there with you on that. Ben writes this: I always thought the best version of the Pacers last year was without Matherin. He's not the problem, right? I don't think he's the problem. I do wish he was more shareable with the basketball, but no, I'm not going to blame him for this. This is them. Now, he's a part of it, but there are more significant parts of it than he is being right now, to me. I know statistically he is doing well, but I've always thought he screwed up the cohesiveness, especially offensively, when he hogs the ball at times. I do, Ben, wish that he was more shareable with it, and I think that would be the benefit of this team. But he has provided production, and I do like the way that he goes at it all the time. But I think the more the shareable process is more starting with the consistency of your star, and that's Tyrese Halliburton. Quick break, we'll come back. Some calls before we end, and the Colts Daily Update with Casey Valier coming up at the top of the hour. Road shows tomorrow, Friday, and then we've got a viewing party just for us to hang out and view at Tom's Watch Bar here downtown. Brand new place. That's coming up on Sunday from 4:30 until 6:30. I'll explain about that and more coming up. Don't go anywhere. It's 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
back together.
Forget it. No way. We're on a mission from God.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
More Earth, Wind, and Fire. Holiday Earth, Wind, and Fire. God, this is great. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Got IU tickets I'll give away to you. Lower level IU tickets, not for Friday night, I think for Monday night. Coming up tomorrow, that's a part of the extravaganza known as our Larceny Bourbon Locks and Luna's Old Tequila Shots tomorrow. That's Whiskey Business, Southport Road. In fact, Whiskey Business, Southport Road tomorrow. Me, Brent Halverson, your chance with our friends from AAA. That's Matt and Matt to win IU tickets if you want to go down to Bloomington for that. We got to give those away tomorrow with you. And then on Friday, Slippery Noodle. Now, I haven't heard from Hagan. And I don't know, in a bye week, I don't know if he's out of town. I think Lindsay is going to see IU Miami of Ohio on Friday. I think Gina's showing on Friday. So I think that's Friday. And then obviously nothing on Saturday. I'm going to go over and watch Center Grove and Danville play girls basketball on the road. Shout out to CG. I was down. Actually, I went to Franklin. I was there I got to see warm-ups, and then I had to leave. That's great. Hey, I want to pay to get in here. I need to watch warm-ups, and then I'm going to leave. But I went to a little CG in Franklin last night, played a little hoop over at CG. It was so stinking cold. Hey, can somebody at Center Grove turn the stinking heat on in the West Gym, for God's sake? Jesus. It's freezing in there last night. I want to pop or pull or yank something that I don't want to. But good time to be had by all. Hey, by the way, Tom's Watch Bar. Can you look and see how long that's been in operation? I think that's very new, relatively new at the very least. That's Sunday, 4:30 until 6:30. We're going to hang out downtown off of Illinois. Just join me. Further details forthcoming, but we'll hang out. And I know the Colts are in a bye week, but we can always find a really strong reason to party. Indiana's biggest bar, from what they tell me. Great menu. Cottage cheese, damn right. Tom's Watch Bar, Sunday, 4:30 until 6:30 with me. All right, James, 239-1070. Let's work in a couple of calls before the close, and Cam is up next. Hello, Cam.
Hey, John. I just want to say this. I haven't been this frustrated with watching the Pacers since they had that dumpster fire of a season with Nate Bjorkgren, and they were fighting coaches and stuff, and this is why. So I remember you asked before the season what were some of the things like fans were wanting to see out of this team.
Yeah.
And the one thing I said was discipline and just taking care of business. And I know we're, 15, 20 games in now. And I mentioned how all offseason, like, these guys talked about, not taking it for granted last year. And, and beating these teams that they need to beat and playing with playing competitive. Who's the leader on this team? And I know the answer is going to be Tyrese Halliburton, and you're going to say Siakam. But where does that line get drawn of after you 15? You can talk about it after your post game every game. And Rick, I can't stand when Carlisle says once again, sometimes he doesn't have these guys ready to play. I just don't know where the line gets drawn after 15, 20 games of you, playing down your competition, and obviously starts with your superstar.
Yeah, you know what? You don't have it. You don't find it until you actually do it. All right? If you play at this level right now, if you're this group, then that's what you are. And compared to last year, you would tag it with no leader. I mean, who's it going to be? At some point, you have two max-out guys right now. Two max-out guys. Somebody's got to step up, and especially against teams that you should be highly competitive, if not have the advantage over. And we haven't seen that. We haven't seen any consistency. So those are the guys you're always going to point the finger at right there. And until further notice, they don't have anybody.
Absolutely. And I'm with you in the sense of the injury things. They have their core guys.
Yeah.
And even when they had their core guys of, Nemhard and Neesmith and, their better wing defenders,
it's still they just don't. I don't see the grind. I don't see the urgency of trying to stop a guy on the defensive end. I know they give up size, and I know they give up this and that. But hell, there's a reason people like us fans love guys like T.J. McConnell because he plays his ass off, whether he's undersized or not. So I just wish they would get a little more spark on that end, but we'll see.
Well, and thank you for the call, too. 48 points in the first half is ridiculous for what they're supposed to be offensively, and 20 total turnovers is unacceptable. And you can put it like this, too. I mean, the leadership, if there's leadership there, it's not showing. Hey, Scott, quickly, give me 10 seconds of your best material. I got to run here.
Yeah, hey, JMV, if you're tired of hearing people say yes, sirs, and B-rip, can you stop with Sweebo, please?
I think that's fair, yeah. I tell you what. Let me tell you this, Scott. If somebody yanks yes, sirs, I will never, ever say Sweebo again.
Thank you.
You got it, Scott. Never, ever. I will never utter Sweebo again if somebody says enough is enough and yanks yes, sirs. That's a JMV guarantee. Joe Wrights, Kevin Bowen, Evan Cidery, podcast 1075thefan.com. Colts Daily Update, me, Casey Valier, coming up on the other side. Sit tight on it. Going to have some fun. Going to be tomorrow on the road and Friday, too. Have a blast later on this week on The Fan.